Yesterday we have heard Karma Chakma's advice on how to deal with negativity, with negative deeds, unwholesome deeds that we have performed in the past, how to confess these misdeeds and how to thus begin to purify them. Today we will continue with the method of accumulating merit, accumulating merit for our own sakes as well as the sakes of beings. And one of these methods, which Karma Chakma is about to explain in this text, is the offering of mandalas. And accordingly, Karma Chakma says, apply yourself as much as possible to any gathering of the accumulations. Accumulations of merit, of course, is what he means here. In this regard, we would be well advised to train ourselves in any of the many different methods which serve to accumulate merit. Whenever we come in the presence of representations of the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, we could, for instance, express our appreciation or veneration by way of presenting offerings, by way of presenting or performing prostrations, and any such activity of this kind. All of these activities, all of these various methods are by all means to be put into practice in order to gather what he calls the accumulations. And in particular, Chagma Rinpoche points out that the mandala offering, among all of these various offerings that one could present, is easy to perform, but at the same time brings about great merit. So a mandala offering is not something that is technically very difficult to do. It is rather easily performed. The actual procedure of offering mandalas can very quickly be learned and then performed time and again. And even though it is so easy, if one goes about it properly, the merit that is being accumulated through this comparatively easily performed offering ceremony is great. When performing offerings in such a way, there are always basically two ways of going about it. You could actually present actual offerings, or if such are not available or not at your disposal, you could offer imagined offerings. If you go about it in a proper way, both will be of equal efficiency, particularly when it comes to the mandala offering and all that entails. For the most part, we present imagined offerings. So what do we offer when we offer mandalas? In the course of a mandala offering, we present as an offering everything that is desirable, that could possibly be within the world of the gods, the demigods, or humans. Whatever conceivable thing could possibly be desirable, we include it in such an offering and we present it, we give it away as a present, we give it away as an offering to who? Of course, to those under whose protection we have placed ourselves, for whose guidance we go, who are none other but the three rare and precious ones, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, of course. If we were to practice in this way, then the merit that is being accumulated through such an offering can hardly be surpassed. So wherever it might be that we actually present as an offering, as the focus of our mandala offering, we would start out by imagining the offering to be a truly vast one. We would imagine in the very center, in front of ourselves, the Mount Meru, as it is called, the central mountain of the universe, and on top of that there are the heavens of the 32 gods, led by, of course, the god Indra in his palace, which is filled with all sorts of riches and wealths and all sorts of enjoyable things. And of course also everything that is included within these 32 heavens of the 32 types of gods. All of these riches, enjoyable materials, wealth of whatever type we could possibly imagine, all of this is being offered, is being presented as part of our offering, as part of our mandala offering, imagined on Mount Meru. Now, at the base of Mount Meru, we find 7 circular rings of mountains, of golden mountains, consisting of solid gold, and in between these mountains there are lakes, or oceans if you wish. And these oceans, or these lakes, are inhabited by the kings of the Nagas, led by the Naga king Gao and his ministers, etc. and so forth. And of course also they possess untold, inconceivable riches, which are offered together with the gold mountains, the lakes, the Mount Meru in the center of them, which has the gods and their wealth above. All of this is being included in this offering. The Mount Meru in its base of these circular mountains, then in the 4 directions is again surrounded by the 4 main continents. The eastern, southern, western, and northern direction are the 4 main continents, left and right of which are the subcontinents. So it's like 12 continents altogether which surrounds the mountain in the 4 directions. Now, the easternmost continent is inhabited by a type of spirits or ghosts which are called yakshas. All the other continents are inhabited by human beings of some sort or other. And of course, as we present the mandala offering, also all of their wealth, all of their possessions, etc. and so forth are all included in this offering. In this way, a mandala offering properly performed includes all the wealth, the enjoyment, the prosperity, the treasures of gods, nagas, humans, all beings which inhabit such a world system of the Mount Meru and surrounding continents, etc. This being the case, it is said that a mandala offering as such is the greatest of offerings, the greatest of presents that we could possibly present, and of course we do present it to those who are most deserving of such an exalted gift, which are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Offering in this way, we will invariably accumulate great merit. After having thus trained ourselves in the presentation of mandala offerings, we are then being told by Karma that the next thing to train ourselves in, the next practice that we should adopt, is the practice of Guruyoga. And he continues to explain, prior to going into the subject, the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Siddhas of the 10 directions are countless, but we did not have the good fortune to meet them. Generally speaking, we can assume that all the 10 directions are indeed filled with such awakened beings. 10 directions meaning the 4 cardinal directions, the intermediate directions, and then the above and the below. All of these directions are indeed filled with awakened beings, Buddhas, with bodhisattvas, the great bodhisattvas who dwell on the various bodhisattva stages, as well as other accomplished beings who are known as siddhas. We all have heard the stories of the great siddhas of India, the 84 Mahasiddhas, and there were many others on top of these, and also of the great accomplished masters of Tibet, the Tibetan siddhas. We've heard their stories, we've heard their names, yet we were not fortunate enough to actually meet them face to face. So as Karma says quite clearly, these Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Siddhas were countless, are countless, but we did not have the good fortune to meet them, or the good karma, as it says here. This is because when they were about, we might just as well also have been about, but not in a form, not in a body, so that we could make much use of their presence. We could, for instance, have been born in the animal realm at that time. As animals, endowed with rather little intelligence, even if we had come across the Buddha or Bodhisattvas or a Siddha, we would not have been aware of the fact that we are in the presence of such an exalted being. We could have been born as little insects or as fish. We could have been born as tigers or lions or as elephants or whatever, and if we had come into the presence of these beings, we would just not have known about it. So their presence at that particular time, if we were lucky enough to even come across them, went utterly unnoticed. So in this way, we were not fortunate enough to truly meet with them in the sense of the word. We might have been carnivorous animals, lions or tigers, and we might, for instance, have had lots of affection for our offspring in this particular lifetime. But all other beings we would, in all likelihood, rather just have viewed as food. And if we had come across a Siddha, for instance, somewhere in the jungles, we might have thought of eating him, but not of doing anything rather more worthwhile with this Siddha. So in this way, even though we might possibly have been around in such a form or other, that was of not much avail, because we were not aware of the fact that we found ourselves in the presence of such an exalted being and couldn't make much use of it. So the opportunity passed, and that was that.
다 창거 럼바트 때로지 창거 럼바 니마를 좀만다나 요래 이 좀만을 풀바치 있어 다 디게 니마를 좀만 자주 나를 잡라 성나 되는 게 저는 총거 럼바 제용데 나는 총 때로지 총 다해 좀 물어봐 저도 다른 당가를 지자 강동 많이 지샷 다바지 되니 하나 동가 아운데는지 도주대 되니 그때라 제르마 꿈이라 오라지 간 감사하지 자 대마도 가자가 거기 요만 된지 요래 다 공개 다른 총지 이내 다디 니마가 좀만데 짠이 포기 토고만 다가 나오더리 다니 예 림보레데 다 마탕지 간가 다니 니 보니 아 다체레 다니 니마한테 다니 림보리서 니마한테 나니 보도 사리 야지제 레가 레줄 나니 보도 수리 다니 림로 다니 디게 잡보티가 아다 다니 야면나나 저쪽에게 저쪽 마음에도 야만나나 땡에바 쳐버진 다 용도 다 가는 게 뜻이 자도 탕지라 다들 다 총총이 아마지 그거 다니 저쪽도 많이 난타나 퍼봐서 저는 총총도 그래 다니 저런 다 강하니 천지인데 뭐나 저는 나창 그거도 나창 통구에 나라 창을 럼바데 제주요 말에 말아 빼줬네 된디게 니마게 접대 가도 파야나메 지용라 대라된 니마게 접다메 풀바 따니 니마 따는 로처메 가요요.
Talking about Mahasiddhas, a story. Back in old India, these Mahasiddhas were out and about, and one of them was the famous Mahasiddha Virapa, or Virapa as he's also known. He was a fully accomplished master, and he was wandering around the country aimlessly, and occasionally he would go to a bar and have himself a drink. He was known to be very fond of beer. Now he was a rather unconventional looking fella. He wore nothing more but a loincloth, a meditation belt. He wore his hair up in a fashionable top knot. Not like that. Not more like this. But this is not a top knot, is it? And large earrings, etc. So already, if you looked at him, he was a rather striking personality. And one day he came to some bar. He sat down and he ordered 5 beers, and he was brought his beer. He sat down, drank his beer, continued to drink and continued to drink. More and more beer was brought until already the stock of beer was running low. When the proprietor of the bar, the elderly lady who ran the bar, eventually came to him and asked him for payment. as is the custom. If you go to a bar and order beer, you pay for it now, don't you? And he said, payment? Right. I shall pay when the shadow has passed behind my back. The sun was shining, he was sitting in the shade, and on the borderline of the sunshine and the shade, he stuck his dagger, his proper, and he said, as soon as the shadow has passed behind me, I will pay you. Now bring more beer. And you brought more beer, and he kept drinking and drinking and drinking, and the shadow would just not move. This was eventually felt in the entire country. That was an unusually long day. People were working, and they continued to work, and the sun would just not set, and people were utterly exhausted and started falling asleep while doing their work, because the sun just wouldn't set. Even the king occasionally, eventually noticed, and he thought, well, this day just does not want to end. Now there's two possibilities. Either this is a particularly bad omen, or some sort of Mahasiddha is at work somewhere. So let's go find out. He sent out his scouts all over the kingdom to find out, and eventually his scouts came to that particular bar where Birababa kept drinking and drinking and drinking, and they found out about the story. The landlady told the scouts, yes, indeed, this person has come here. He told me he would pay once the shade has passed behind his back, but the sun doesn't seem to want to set. So Birababa was then eventually apprehended by the scouts of the king, and they asked him what the story is all about. And Birababa said, well, I came here to drink beer, as is my custom, and this woman has this idea that I should pay her money for it. So I simply stopped the day. I told her I'll pay once the sun sets, and I simply stopped the sun in its course. So therefore, I'm still going to continue drinking.
Oh yeah, I'm not a chunker and bought Google Maduna, I'm not put by the Yaji and in Samurini, got my shadow. Then you come on. Chunker and Batego, no, my group, some young, not the young what you wanted.
So it was eventually found out what the matter of the, what the problem was with this day that just didn't want to end. And eventually Birababa was approached by the people. They said, please, 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 do not worry. We will pay for your beer, but please bring this day to an end. And Birababa, delighted at not having to pay the bill, probably ordered another round, and they said, okay, here we go. And he took his proper out of the ground, and all of a sudden it was deep night. The stars were shining, maybe the moon as well, and that day was finally, eventually over. So in this way, it is a very useful thing to have such miraculous abilities as the Mahasiddhas, and if we had them, you might get off free in any bar.
Tema the mobile in Tonga, mobile Tonga, Naranga Lugan, Julu shot out in the club there. The Dana, and or never made out at the moment on the lower on Chimba to Sotan, Singo, Singing, then for Rini, then Nasa shoot Chambo, then Chimbata, Lo, Satan, the shots on Meva, that is in Ringo on the wa. I did know what he's done, and he up time in my watching the then around some tongue, then around Tunkin, Yona, tell that there's a Pazan go to.
However, since we're not Mahasiddhas, definitely beware of the dangers of alcohol. There's not only beer and wine, there are also hard liquors of all sorts, and of course it is known that ingested in small quantities, they can by all means have a medicinal effect. If we were to ingest them in large quantities, over long periods of time even, that would have rather more the opposite effect. The dangers of alcoholism are commonly known, and we have seen many people who have suffered of it. The inner organs, as it is said, will be severely damaged by the continuous influence of hard liquor. The veins, the channels of the subtle energy body deteriorate, one loses weight, and eventually one has reached a stage in which one is beyond redemption. So therefore, beware of alcohol, and if you ingest hard liquors occasionally at all, then please do so only in small quantities. Next, Karmapa continues to say, the Guru, the Lama, from whom you receive empowerments and teaches the Tantras, from whom you receive practice instructions, he is kinder than all the Buddhas. And indeed, the teacher, the Lama, the Guru, however you wish to call him, from whom he has received empowerments, etc., is such a being. We have come into the presence of our teachers, we have received empowerments from them, we have received instructions on how to train ourselves in development process, meditation, how to perform mantra repetitions, what to imagine in the course of these. We have received instructions from our gurus in perfection process, meditation, etc., and so forth. So in this way, the Guru shows us inconceivable, great kindness. And it is said that this being the case, the Guru is kinder than even the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Why is that? Because we did not have the good fortune to meet the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Even though they may be the source of these teachings which we receive from the Guru, it is the Guru who is kind enough to teach us these teachings, to introduce us to these teachings. Therefore, the Guru, the teacher, the Lama is to be considered of the greatest, of the utmost importance and utmost and greatest kindness.
Lama taman pasi yena ya dojin changdo me be sortana nyongdo yen tin jin perwa yen kan lama tera naranga lama tera tuji la yen tin ya ko ji yo na mu ro yen tin san ni me ba jin si yen na mu ro kan ni yen na ya naranga no la naranga lama song jin na song yen naranga lama de dojin chang na song yen sang so wa ta na ti nga ru ke de ba ta yi ji la ni ta nga ru ke sa nyong tong to pa che pa ji yen ti che pa ji mo mo ta nga ra na to ping ke.
Karmapa goes on to say, even if the Guru is an ordinary being, if you would pray to him with the confidence that he is Vajradhara, then experience, realization, and qualities will arise, and it will increase. That is to say, even if the Guru, the Lama that you follow, is not a particularly great one, possibly even a rather more ordinary one, if you yourself have the confidence that he is none other but Vajradhara, or she for that matter, then indeed experiences which are followed by realizations, which are followed by the development of qualities, will arise. So it is your devotion to the teacher that makes a difference. This is taught to be the kindness of all Buddhas, says KARMAPA. So in this regard, to receive the kindness or to be aware of the kindness of the teacher, to benefit from it, comes to pass or comes into being solely through the kindness of all the Buddhas, Buddhas of all the 3 times, Buddhas of the 10 directions. It is due to their kindness that we find ourselves in the presence of such teachers. And now it's time again to train ourselves in shamatha or Shiné meditation to bring about a quiet, peaceful, quiescent mind. And there is yet again another verse of the third Karmapa, Rangjung Dorje, from his famous aspiration for the achievement of the realization of Mahamudra, in which he roughly says, coarse and subtle thought activity comes to rest in its own place. May our resting in quiescence become stable. So as we practice accordingly, of course we will become aware of many coarse thoughts. These are easily recognized and easily brought to a standstill. These are rather easy to deal with. However, sometimes there's also that subtle undercurrent of rather more subtle thoughts, hardly noticed thoughts, which nevertheless are still there. Even these, it is said, if we train ourselves accordingly in shamatha, in Shiné meditation, will eventually come to rest, will eventually come to a standstill, and we will then simply rest in a peaceful and a quiescent mind, and simply let things rest at that time. So in this way we're supposed to rest in that ocean of quiescence, as it is called. And in the next line, Rangjung Dorje says, rest like this, free of the stains of dullness and sleepiness. This is exactly one of the faults of shamatha meditation that can occur. When you sit and meditate, there is that dull feeling that can all of a sudden occur. You're not really fully concentrated anymore. You're sort of drifting off, not really at it anymore. And that might very well also develop into falling asleep. If that is the case, the antidote is to straighten your body, to raise your gaze to the skies, look upwards instead of downwards, and if possible, open a window, let in some fresh air so things become a little cooler, a little more conducive to the practice. So if that should happen, if you should get a little dull, a little bit sleepy in such a way, these are the antidotes to be applied. So in this way, let us now practice together a little bit of Shiné meditation, of calm resting, and focus yourself upon an imagined Buddha in front of yourself. The Buddha who sits in front and a little bit above, in space in all of his golden splendor. Focus your attention upon his heart center.
Time for
a few questions.